What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Wolf Crier here, and I wanted to show you something that I've been working on the PTR. Now, as you all know, I am really enjoying the PTR for patch 2.6.1 in Diablo 3, in which Blizzard has decided to buff a ton of builds all across every single class. And for you guys that know me, I love the monk. It's been my main class since Season 5. So I'm really enjoying all of the updates as far as Uliana's goes, the Uliana's EP build, the Sunwuko's Wave of Light build, even Sunwuko's LTK is pretty beast, as well as, you know, the buffs to Inna's Generator and Raiment Generator due to the Shenlong's buffs. So all the builds have gotten really good buffs. You're looking at a ton of builds that are now 100 plus. What do you got? Uliana's EP, Inna's EP, Inna's Gen, Raiment Gen. You've got Sunwuko's LTK, LON LTK, Wave of Light Sunwuko's. And one thing that I've been working on heavily is the Sunwuko's Tempest Rush build. Now, they did recently add a ton of buffs to this build as well, but currently this is what I'm working with, and I got it to about a 94-95 GR range currently. I have personally done a 92, almost got a 93 done with the right amount of fishing. I know it can do about a 95, somewhere that area. But I would really like to see if this build could push into the hundreds just like all the other builds. And I just think that it really needs a little bit more love from the buffs, both with damage numbers and a little bit of damage mitigation. So let's take a look at what I've got, because I'm hoping that you guys maybe could give me a little insight, see if I could bring this up a little bit without any buffs. But currently I'm thinking my numbers are correct with 95, somewhere that area. What I've settled on for my rune choice for Tempest Rush is the Flurry rune. 390% weapon damage as cold while you are running. So while you're channeling this, you're getting that 390% damage bonus. Now, Northern Breeze does give you that 500% damage bonus instead of 390, and it lowers your resource cost of Tempest Rush, but the Flurry rune, in my opinion, is the most damage that this build can offer because of the rune's ability. After you stop channeling Tempest Rush, you cause an icy blast to all enemies within 15 yards. The damage of the explosion increases by 90% weapon damage as cold while you're channeling. Now, initially, this was able to be stacked up to 500, but in the most recent patch update, this was actually nerfed down to 100. And I can understand why, because even at 100, it can wreck stuff. Like absolutely wreck elites, that sort of thing, because that is a massive damage bonus. So even with the 100 stacks, you're looking at 9,000 weapon damage that this thing can pump out just by stopping your Tempest Rush, which is what I like about this build. It's got a cool mechanic. It's not just like you're whirlwinding like a barb. This, you can actually utilize your dashing strike to dash at an enemy, which also stops your Tempest Rush, which causes the explosion. So you can dash places and set off this rune. And you can also just plain stop, and it'll cause this explosion and make everything around you within 15 yards take the damage, which is where most of your damage is coming from with this build. Now, for the rest of the stuff, it's pretty much basic Sunwuko's Sweeping Wind builds. You got Sweeping Wind. I have actually been starting to run with Master of Wind, mainly because I'm running Frostburns, which allows your cold skills to freeze enemies, and that helps trigger your Caesar's Memento, which enemies take increased damage from your Tempest Rush for 5 seconds after you hit them with a blind, freeze, or stun. So Master of Wind is definitely helping with that, but Tempest Rush could probably do it its own. I guess if you're having a lot of resource cost issues with Tempest Rush, switch back to the normal Holy rune, which is going to give you increased spirit regen. Now for the rest, like I said, it's Epiphany, Dashing Strike, Blinding Speed. You've got Blinding Flash, Replenishing Light, which is going to allow you to get back your spirit so that you can continue, as well as also triggering your Caesar's Memento. And then I use Mystic Ally, Air Ally with the Crudest Boots. That gives me 8 spirit regen per second, and if I'm running low on spirit, I can just pop the active and get all of my spirit back. Now the drawback with that is if you start running out of spirit and you need to do this and you pop it, unlike Replenishing Light, you actually stop, which is going to make you trigger your Tempest Rush Flurry rune, so then you're going to have to restart getting your stacks, that sort of thing. It is really hard to get up to 100 stacks with this, and this build definitely suffers versus affixes that crowd control you. Frozen, do not get frozen. Obviously, that's going to remove all your stacks, as well as Jailer, that sort of thing. Wormhole is really bad because that instantly knocks you out of your channeling, and you pop your explosion wherever you wormholed to. And if there's no mobs over there, you've done absolutely no damage. So there are a few affixes in the game that really, really mess with this build. Now for the rest of the build, I'm using 6-piece Sunwuko set, which I'm using the Royal Ring so that I can wear my Frostburns. I'm also bouncing between Witching Hour and String of Ears, depending on your damage taken. It's a squishy build still, so it's really hard to wear Witching Hour once you get up into the 93, 94 range. But anything lower than that, especially with me being 1700 Paragon, it's still usable. Up to at least the 90s, the low 90s. And then you might have to switch off to String of Ears for the damage mitigation. Now, I also, as I said, I wear Crudest Boots so that I can get that double Air Ally. And I actually run with Balance on me because it is a two-handed weapon. It increases your damage. You can run with Vengeful Wind instead, but my only issue with that is there's nothing else to really go with it as far as a second offhand. You can run Ingeome, I guess, but that's going to rely on you killing elite packs, that sort of thing to trigger its active. And I've tried it with Crystal Fist, but unfortunately that's just a bad idea because then you lose your stacks repetitively. Because in order to get Crystal Fist's damage mitigation, you have to Dashing Strike every 6 seconds. So that is absolutely horrible for this build because you lose those stacks on your Flurry rune. Now, for the rest of the build, Caesar's Memento, Frostburns, as I said before. I also use COE, which is very, very useful and deals a massive amount of damage when you get to your Cold rune. And I use Unity while I'm pushing. Now, if I was doing a speed farming type of build, I switch off to Vengeful Wind and Ingeome as the weapon. I switch Unity out for Avarice Band and Boon of the Hoarder. And if I'm speed farming GRs like 60s, which you can do in about 2 minutes with this build, I switch off. I either keep the Unity or I switch off to Obsidian Ring and I wear Wreath of Lightning instead so that I get that bonus movement speed. Over in the cube, I use Vengeful Wind or the Balance, depending on which build I'm running, and Mantle of Channeling, which allows me 25% increased damage and damage mitigation whenever I am channeling, and I'm doing so quite a bit. But overall, I'm really thinking that this build needs some more love. Like, even if it's taking away that blind, freeze, or stun portion of the Caesar's Memento, or just buffing that up entirely by another 100 to 200%, I think that would really lead this into the 100 GR range, especially with a 200% damage boost on top of this, and then, you know, getting rid of that blind, freeze, or stun portion. It kind of sucks because you're only dealing your damage when things are blind, frozen, or stunned. So that's where most of your damage is coming from. Now your blind is up quite a bit, and like I said, I use Frostburns, which helps out a lot with this build, but Unfortunately, there's not a lot of room for changes with this build, and I think it just needs a little bit more buffs, a little bit more damage mitigation, because I'd like to see this up there with the rest of the builds, because it is a very fun build, especially with that flurry rune, because it's cool. It adds a dynamic where dashing somewhere can blow whatever it is you dash to up. And it deals a ton of damage to elites, but not enough. And it's not up there with Ulianas or Wave of Light, so I would like to see more love for this build. So guys, that is what I've been currently working on the PTR. If you have any suggestions that I could add or change or tweak this build in any way to help me progress further and see if we can bring this up to the rest of the builds, let me know. There will be a build guide coming for this, but I do want to wait till next week after the patch update to see if this build gets some more love so that I can be more accurate in my build guide. So hang tight for that. Make sure you keep an eye out, because this is a very fun build and I'm having a ton of fun running it. I just wish it could deal a little bit more damage, but it's good to see Tempest Rush at least over the 90 GR area and able to speed farm. It's a good skill. It's a fun skill. Speed farming is very fun with this build. It's kind of like the Monk's version of Whirlwind, but you deal the most of your damage when you stop instead of while you are actually whirlwinding. But guys, thank you very much for checking out this video. If you do like this video and you like my build guides, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Don't forget to click that like button as well, guys. I want to hear from you. Let me know what I could do a little bit different with this build. And see you soon. Guys, thank you so very much once again. Peace.